Malachi Corley has officially agreed to terms with the New York Jets. Rookies are set to report to Florham Park tomorrow. Have New York Jets players been getting snubbed in Jeremy Fowler's positional rankings? In the Huddle, episode 3, we are live.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Welcome in everyone. Here we are, episode 3 of The Huddle. We had to move things around. We're not in our regular Monday night slot. It was my birthday on Monday, so we did have to shuffle things around. But Boy Green, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Connor. It's great to be back. It seems like the fans have really gotten a kick out of this show, and I feel the same gosh darn way. It's awesome, man. So an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, great to be here tonight. But Boy Green, you ready to get right into it?
Yes, sir. Let's roll.
So the big news today, really mostly for the Jets, is they officially agreed to terms with rookie wide receiver Malachi Corley. Boy Green, what do you take away from that?
Just thank goodness. I don't think we have to go too crazy. Like, oh boy, like this was this crazy distraction or anything. But you just confirm that it won't be. Again, as you mentioned already, rookies for the New York Jets report tomorrow. The full team reports on the 23rd. The first practice is the 24th, which is a week from today. We'll be talking about the Jets practice efforts. A week from today around this time, we'll be talking about it. So it's just good to get it done because it could have been a distraction. It could have been something. Thankfully, it's not. It's very hard to with the current NFL CBA. There's a rookie wage scale, so everything's slotted. Wherever you are selected in the draft is how much money you're going to make. There's very few things you could still debate. It's like payment structure, when you get your money, in signing bonus and guarantee dates, and how some of those are scheduled over a year or two. It's, again, a bunch of semantics that fans don't care about. Those are the very few things that you can negotiate as a player. So it was going to get done. I'm just glad that it is. And now there's just one big, juicy storyline left in this kind of conversation. Of course, that's Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, so what I take away mainly from this Corley thing is rookies were set to report to camp tomorrow. I don't even know I don't think anyone really knows what the holdup was, but they're like, all right, this is like our last day before camp starts. Let's just pen to paper. Let's get this done. And like you mentioned, someone's up next. It's Hassan Reddick. Boy Green, what do you think an extension for Reddick's going to look like? Do you think they even ink him to a new deal, or they just kind of guarantee some of the money in his current contract?
Yeah, I called the Rich Eisen show this week. Tom Pelissero is filling in for Rich for the majority of the week. And I thought Tom, as an NFL Network insider, would have more information that, quite frankly, I just haven't heard people talking about. They've been talking about the Ayuk situation or this or that. But the Reddick thing's been really quiet from the main NFL insiders, whether it's NFL Network, ESPN, or what have you. So I said, let me just go straight to the horse's mouth and see if he has anything. And there were some interesting comments made by Pelissero about the history of holding in regards to his agent and not really a holdout history with this current agent and his representation. Jake Asman did a really good job on his show earlier talking about that spot on the Rich Eisen show and some of his own research and his own sourcing that he was able to do for that. I don't believe, I would be stunned if the Jets gave Hassan Reddick like a Danielle Hunter 2-year deal, $49 million, $48 million fully guaranteed, like that kind of monster earth-shattering contract coming out of nowhere. That would shock me. I think they do get something done in terms of like, hey, it benefits all sides for Hassan Reddick to be playing football for the Jets. How do we have to get you there? Is it a little bit of an incentive package? If you get this many sacks, we'll give you bonuses of this, that. Do you splash in some team incentives? If we make the playoffs, you get this. Every playoff win, you get this. Tyron Smith has that built into his contract. If the Jets go all the way to winning the Super Bowl, he gets a nice, fat, juicy bonus. And he gets bonuses for each playoff win and things of that nature. So there's a lot of ways to build that in there. I think ultimately it will be a sweetener. I think something gets done.
Yes.
I don't think it's a crazy new deal. And I don't think it's just straight up, although the Jets, if they wanted to, could toe the line and say, hey, Hassan, you initially, which seems to be all the reporting, you said it was cool to run this contract back, and you changed your mind when you believed that leverage changed with JFM being traded and Bryce Huff obviously no longer being a part of the organization, and he changed his mind to try to benefit himself. So the Jets could toe the line and push it, but I don't think they do. I think ultimately it's in all parties' interest to have a sweetener deal, add some incentives, get his ass in camp.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a new deal. I mean, I don't think the Jets could really afford with their current cap situation to ink Reddick to another extension like that. I think it's just something guarantees some of the money, but Reddick also has to realize not playing football hurts him really more than it kind of hurts the Jets. I mean, he's not going to get paid if he doesn't play, but speaking of Hassan Reddick, Jeremy Fowler has surveyed over 80 league executives, coachings, and scouts to grade every position room. Let's start with Hassan Reddick on the edge rusher rankings. He was ranked an honorable mention. Do you think Reddick was snubbed on that list?
Yeah, it's completely disrespectful.
Yep.
There's just no other way to put it. Uh, and they make it clear, they being Jeremy Fowler, in the monologue, the introduction of this piece, that this is not a Lifetime Achievement Award and this is not a projection. This is right now in the game. And I don't know. People are going to say we're biased for doing a Jets show here. We're both Jets
Yeah.
representatives from that standpoint. I don't know how you can say with a straight face that Hassan Reddick is not one of the 10 best pass rushers in the NFL
Yeah.
when his production speaks for itself. He has 4 straight double-digit sack seasons. There's only one other player that's been able to accomplish that over that same time period, number one. Number two, he is number 4 in sack production over that time in the entire league. 4th. And while sacking the quarterback isn't everything for pass rushers, it's one of the best things, one of the top things that you can do as a hired hitman. Hassan Reddick is a freaking beast. He instantly, the moment he was traded to the Jets, was one of the best players on their roster, and the Jets have one of the best rosters in football. If that doesn't tell you where Reddick should have placed, I don't know what does. For me, more chips on the shoulder for him. I mean, I was angry about it in the moment and still a little peeved about it right now, to be frank, but yeah, that one to me makes no sense. There are certain ones, and we'll get into them if we go through all of the list of certain players that didn't make the top 10. I'm like, totally see that, totally understand, makes a lot of sense. Reddick was not one that I agreed with.
Yeah, staying with the defense, how about linebackers? CJ Mosley was given, not CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley actually were both given honorable mentions. I covered this story, I covered both Reddick, which I covered Reddick and the linebacker ones for JetX, and I said, oh, Reddick was snubbed, and then we'll go to linebacker. Now, I think an honorable mention, personally, is a very generous ranking for CJ Mosley coming off the season that he had last year. I mean, I think honorable mention is very generous for a player like him. I mean, you saw play decline from 2022 into 2023. In terms of Williams, I mean, that's just that's just insane. I mean, first team All Pro listed as an honorable mention.
Disgusting. 3 players on the planet Earth that we're all on were named first team All Pro linebackers. Those 3 are these players I'm about to mention. It is Quincy Williams, it is Fred Warner, it is Roquan Smith. Fred Warner and Roquan Smith on that Jeremy Fowler list were the top 2 linebackers on the list. They were also first team All Pros. Quincy, the third first team All Pro of that list, didn't make the top 10. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Again, we could talk about Pro Bowls and go, well, this or that. We're talking about an All Pro. You make the team or you don't make the team. There's no substitutes, no alternates. That to me was one of the most disrespectful rankings I think I've seen in my life. Quincy Williams is a beast. He's coming off a career year in several major categories, including but not limited to total tackles, tackles for loss, pass deflection. Like he just surged all over the place. And the fact that he was honorable mention, and not even the first one mentioned, CJ Mosley
Yep.
was the first honorable mention listed. Quincy Williams was third on the honorable mention list. Again, hopefully we'll have Jeremy Fowler on before the season and we can ask him the question. But I don't even think the honorable mentions are ranked like 11, 12, 13. I think it's just a photo dump where all of them are thrown in there together as a list. And even still, that one to me, I just don't understand. He's young. He's great. Again, you're talking about right now. And right now, Quincy Williams is arguably he's arguably one of the best in football in terms of like where you believe he is 1, 2, 3. But like he was the second best coverage linebacker in football. He was a phenomenal tackler, top 10 in the league in tackle. I just don't know what other metrics or numbers you need, but he passes the analytics test, he passes the raw stats test, and he passes the look test. It's a travesty. Travesty he wasn't on that.
Yeah, I mean, you first team All Pro. First team All Pro. You mentioned Roquan Smith and Fred Warner. I definitely think they should be on the upper echelon of that list. I mean, those are
Sure.
two
Yeah. Yeah.
elite linebackers. But I mean, the fact Mosley didn't even warrant top 10 recognition is disgusting. But, Boy Green, let's move over to the offense. We'll start with our signal caller. Aaron Rodgers was listed number 8 on the list. Take it away.
Spectacular. If he is the 8th best quarterback, the Jets are winning the Super Bowl. And I saw RG3 went viral with that take too, but we had the same take. I reacted to that Aaron Rodgers one literally as soon as Jeremy Fowler posted. I'm like, perfect. It came out at 6:30 in the morning. I'm like, I got a show at 7:30. Can't wait to talk about it. And that was my take as well. So I saw RG3 said it too. But boy, Aaron Rodgers being 8 is spectacular. He was 4th the prior year, and he tore his Achilles and he dropped 4 spots. Again, the Jets have not had top 10 quarterback play since Fitzpatrick in 2015. And then before that, you're either single year picking the great Chad Pennington year we had in the early 2000s, or you're going Vinny in the late 90s.
Yep.
That just goes to show you the gaps that we've had at the quarterback position. And that's when you were like negative 40 years old, Connor, when I'm dropping some of these things in there. I know you just joined the teenager club. Check out the movie Breakfast Club when you get a chance. But the point is that it's inspiring that he's still 8th. That's what people still think about him. And you can argue like CJ Stroud, should he be above Rodgers? I don't know. Justin Herbert, should he be above Rodgers? I don't know. But the point is, regardless, Dak Prescott probably shouldn't be 10 either. If we're giving proper respect, he should be much higher on the list. But the point is that Aaron Rodgers is spectacular. And if he plays like that, combined with everything else the Jets have, they're obviously making the playoffs, and they will be contending for a Super Bowl championship.
Yeah, I mean, number 8, here's my thing with Rodgers. I've said it all along. If he plays like a top 15, even the top 15 to 17 range, I think, with this defense, top 15 to top 17, I think will get the Jets to the playoffs. I 100% will. The fact top 8, I mean, matches number 8. Let's go, baby. I mean, Aaron Rodgers within the top 10 as a 40-year-old. I absolutely love it. And you mentioned RG3 there. Were you referring to the debate that Bart Scott and RG3, I don't know if you saw that, the debate that RG3 and Bart Scott were having.
I saw that one too. I'm not sure if that's the one I'm referencing because RG3 apparently has gone viral on Jet social media multiple times this week. But RG3, one of the takes he had was basically what I just said, that if Aaron Rodgers plays like a top 10 quarterback, as he was in that list, because it's their own product, Jeremy Fowler's of ESPN, RG3 of ESPN, so he just kind of tabled it while they're talking about it on Get Up. And he said basically the same thing I did, is that he believes that the Jets are competing for a Super Bowl if Aaron Rodgers is playing that kind of football, top 8 football in the league. And I agree. But I did also see the arguing with Bart Scott on the talent on the team and how many Hall of Famers. I heard them going back and forth. That was interesting.
Yeah, moving on though, running back position. Jets star running back Breece Hall was listed number 2 on the list. What do you got?
Great placement. Again, it's the greatest consolation prize in Jeremy Fowler list history to be number 2 to Christian McCaffrey and the number 1 running back under the age of 25. Breece Hall's a beast. And a lot of people don't know Breece Hall yet. That's just the simplest way to put it. It's great that this panel is not of fans. It is of scouts. It is of coaches. It is of league executives, people that you think should be in the know. Although based on some of these other results of this list, I'm not quite sure if they are. But in this particular case, they were drinking the right sort of thing as they were picking these running backs. Christian McCaffrey's a beast. He has been far more productive from a lot of perspectives, but specifically from a rushing perspective. He led the league in rushing last year with nearly 1,500 yards. He had a 200 to 300 yard gap. It was in the 200s over the next closest guy from a rushing perspective. Breece has never had 1,000 yards yet. So if Breece wants to surpass Run CMC, he's going to have to start running the ball on a consistent basis and getting into that conversation. So being a better runner, he needs to, in the same conversations we could have about Garrett, he needs to be in 11, 12, 13, 1,400-yard rushing. Thomas Jones kind of seasons
Yep.
that we saw well over a decade ago. If he's having that kind of production, Breece Hall could go higher on the list. But Breece Hall's explosive. It's spectacular to be number 2. That's great respect for Breece.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. I mean, you look at not 1,000 yards, but he had 994 rushing yards last season. The Jets mathematician had a massive error on that one. But I mean, you look at his success on the ground and then in the receiving game. With a bottom ranked offensive line with the most combinations in the league. You take that offensive line, you bring in 3 new starters. One of them being veteran all pro tackle Tyron Smith. One of them Morgan Moses, the other John Simpson. Those are very competent starters. So you bring in 3 new starters, plus Elijah Vera Tucker when healthy. He's an all pro. We'll get into that a little later. But I mean, his success is only going to thrive. I know you mentioned it's not a projection, but still, you just look at his success he had last year. And then now you get Aaron Rodgers and 3 new starters on the offensive line. I mean, he's only going to go up from here. So I think, Breece is great for Breece Hall. But moving over to the interior offensive line rankings, Elijah Vera Tucker was not even listed as an honorable mention on that list. And personally, I'm not going to say it's a snub because he struggled to stay healthy. But, I definitely think he could have earned himself an honorable mention.
Yeah, he was on the honorable mention list the year prior, which is
Yep.
a fun little exercise to kind of compare and contrast as
Mhm.
they go year to year. He has missed 22 games over the last 2 years,
Yep.
so he has been MIA. AVT has not been able to be on the field. AVT has been on IR, as we're doing all these acronyms, a little short word. That's where he's been, quite frankly. You see the Key and Peele sketch. Ron, where are you? I'm asking, AVT, where are you? Those are the questions that I'm asking. And on the list, I was not looking for AVT. I did not think he deserved to be in the top 10. I don't think he deserved to be an honorable mention. I don't think he deserved in the others receiving votes category. It's time to let the rubber meet the road here. And AVT needs to stay healthy. And if he does, I think he can achieve all of these things of Pro Bowls, All Pros, and being on these wonderful Jeremy Fowler lists where you get rose petals thrown at your feet. But to me, the NFL is a results-oriented business, and you could get away for a little bit of hype, the P word potential that people hate so much of what they can be or what they can possibly be. But it's about proof in the pudding. And I'll go back to a Tom Pelissero thing that he said on the Rich Eisen show. Let me ask you, Connor, are you a fan of the show The Bear on Hulu? Have you seen that?
Is that the cooking show?
Yes, that's a cooking show.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen
Okay.
it.
That's okay. The only thing that matters from that show is there's a thing in this latest season that came out, season 3. It's called the Non-Negotiables, and it's a cooking show, and they have their own restaurant and everything. And non-negotiables, like the things that have to happen. There's no debate that can happen. So Rich Eisen and the show did a cute thing of the non-negotiables for every team in the NFL, and they went through the AFC East this week. And Tom Pelissero's non-negotiable one thing for the Jets is they have to run the football. And I thought it was a fascinating thing to pluck, considering all the different storylines for the New York Jets this season. And I hope they do, because first off, that gives Breece opportunities. That allows you to slow play Aaron Rodgers' return to the lineup and truly give it an all-in effort. So I do hope that's a great call out from Tom Pelissero on the non-negotiable, that they do need to have a basis. The foundation of this offensive house should be pounding the Brutus beefcake, where Breece Hall and some of these other backs that are on the team, Braylon Allen, Izzy, Isaiah Davis, whoever the hell, Tarico, and whoever the hell is going to be doing it beyond Breece too, is the commitment to the running game and being this run team that's going to punch you in the mouth. I just think that's important, which obviously feeds into the offensive line play as well that we were just talking about.
Yeah, 100% agree. I don't think AVT, like we spoke about, deserves to be on that list. 22 or 21 games? 21 it was?
It is 20, I believe it's 23 in his career, and I believe it's 22 over the last 2 seasons.
Okay, so I was, 22 over the past 2 seasons. But moving on to the wide receiver position, Garrett Wilson listed as an honorable mention. What do you take away from that? You think he should be higher, or that's right where he deserves to be?
I believe this is where we will disagree, Connor, as I perused a Jets X Factor article of yours earlier today that came across my timeline. Again, There's a lot of really good receivers in the league, and you can pull up the list of Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lambs, Tyreek Hill. So we could go through the whole thing on AFC, NFC, all those sides. There's a lot of really good receivers. I did not expect to see Justin Jefferson or Garrett Wilson in the top 10, although on NewYorkJets.com, they aggregate when people say nice things about the Jets. So, like, Garrett apparently appeared in a top 10 wide receiver ranking for CBS Sports earlier this offseason. I heard about it from the NewYorkJets.com, their official website. I said, oh, interesting. I said, and to myself, I went, ooh, kind of surprising. I did not think. Same thing I kind of saying, but in a different way because Garrett has been available his whole career, which is a thing we don't give enough credit for. 34 of 34 games Garrett Wilson's appeared in his first 2 years, and he's been banged up several times in the middle of games. He's never missed a game. So shout out to the NFL Iron Man that is Garrett Wilson. But he needs to prove it. And his numbers are good for Jets history. He's the first Jets receiver in team history that's ever had 1,000 yards in his first 2 years. Golf clap. That's pretty cool. That's great. And we've had actually a lot of really, really good receivers come through here, whether it be Don Maynard, Lavernius Coles, Jericho Cotchery, Al Toon, like Wesley Walker, a legend of this YouTube channel program. They've had a lot of really good receivers. But the fact of the matter is Garrett has not entered the elite conversation yet of kind of what I was saying about Brees, 12, 13, 14, 1,500 yards receiving, double-digit touchdowns. He's had 3 and 4 respectively through his first 2 years. No fault of his own, but it is what it is. People don't care about context. They care about numbers and putting them up and being able to do that consistently. And I believe that Garrett Wilson will collect his receipts next year. If he has a season we all believe he can with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, then he will be on every friggin' list and Madden video game covers and everything else that he wants, but he needs the production. Again, I repeat, it's results-oriented business. Him not being in the top 10, that did not surprise me. If he wouldn't have been an honorable mention, I probably would have looked at it sideways like, wow, people are really sleeping on this guy. But again, there's a lot of really good receivers in this league, so I am not surprised he was not in the top 10, and I would have been surprised if he was in the top 10. He needs to prove it on the field.
Yeah, Boy Green, I don't believe we disagreed there, as I'm actually
okay.
with you, and I stated that in my Jet X Factor article too. Same opinion basically. There are so many talented wide receivers, and I said I think there's a chance though next year that he goes out and breaks some records for receptions and reception yards. And Rivka Board of Jet X Factor also said the same thing, which I did quote in my article. But last year, Wilson finished 13th in receptions, 22nd in receiving yards, and 54th in receiving touchdowns. None of those are in the top 10, so that just tells me that Garrett Wilson should not be in the top 10. But we're gonna stay with wide receiver for now. You know, you mentioned the Jets have had so many great receivers in Jets history. I actually put out a column with 3 honorable mentions, ranking the top 5 receivers in Jets history. I want to know if you agree with me. For the honorable mentions, I put Keyshawn Johnson, Brandon Marshall, Jericho Cotchery. Top 5, I put Lavernius Coles at 5, Al Toon at 4, Corbett 3, Walker 2, Maynard 1.
Wow. Okay. That's a very interesting list. Two of my favorite receivers were in the same era, and I love them. They're here in the 21st century. That is Lavernius Coles and Jericho Cotchery. I love those two guys, team legends. I will love them forever. Brandon Marshall, to your honorable mention point, had the greatest single season in Jets history, 109 catches, 1,502 yards, and 14 touchdowns, which are either number one records all to themselves, catches, yards, and touchdowns are tied because we've had, again, a lot of really good Jets receivers in history. And I know all those numbers off the top of my head because Brandon Marshall was so gosh darn spectacular there in 2015. But it was a short one. 2016 was a disaster, as was Jets season. I wish I could forget. So interesting, though. Okay, another honorable mention probably is Eric Decker. He had a flash, but he had some production that was certainly there. Run through your top 5 one more time.
Lavernius Coles at 5.
Okay. Yep.
Al Toon at 4.
Yep.
Wayne Corbett at 3. No, Wayne Corbett 3. Walker 2. Maynard 1.
Okay, good. Don Maynard should be number 1. And again, I'm glad Connor my freshly 13-year-old buddy here on the show that you put Don Maynard at number one. I've heard a lot of Don Maynard slander in the streets. Folks, he's a Pro Football Hall of Famer, and look at what he did in 13 and 14 game seasons. I mean, that would be
Yep.
spectacular in a 17 game season, let alone 13 and 14. He has, I believe it's 4 of the 5 greatest single seasons in Jets history in receiving yards. So people put some gosh darn respect on the name of Don Maynard. So wonderful job putting him at number one. He deserves it. And yeah, I like the honorable mentions too. As long as you have my boy in the conversation of Jericho Cotchery's Laveranues Coles, he did a halfway decent job. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jericho Cotchery was just led the Jets in receiving yards from 2009 to 2011. He was selected in the 4th round. Despite that, he never even received a Pro Bowl. He was just a guy who flew under the radar. And I closed it out when I put him as an honorable mention. I said, we need more players like Jericho Cotchery in today's game. I mean, someone who's going to come in as a day 3 pick, work his way up, kind of fly under the radar, be an underrated guy, but contribute tremendously to the Jets roster. But again, another topic on receiver. It's been hot these past few days. The Davante Adams rumors have been swirling. The Brandon Ayuk rumors have been swirling. But before we get to Davante Adams, his agent apparently shut down these rumors yesterday. But then he proceeded to go on a podcast where he said he is set in Las Vegas. But if he was to reunite with anyone, he said he'd want to reunite with Rodgers. And, I know this clip was before the Raiders hired Antonio Pierce, who Adams has, been very vocal about and likes it. But have you seen the clip of Davante Adams on the Receiver Show?
Yeah, was that the Shay Shay something Club Shay Shay podcast? Is that the one you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I just saw that clip earlier today. And also another honorable mention, Santana Moss,
Yeah,
absolute freak,
I see
tip of the
that one.
cap. There we go, jetted out. Damn straight. I didn't even see that comment on my side of the screen. I have to go to a different screen to see the comment, so I didn't even see that. But yes, we're on the same wavelength, jetted out. Santana Moss deserves to be on that list. And also, I just want to say this. For the people that are putting Garrett Wilson in the top 5, take a lap. Take a drink, take a seat, and breathe. He's 2 years in for the prisoner moment of hell. I feel like an old man here yelling from my porch, you bastards. Like Garrett Wilson, whoa. Can he be in the top 5 one day? Hopefully, but 2 years in, top 5 already. Whoa. What the hell?
Yeah.
What the heck are we talking about? Let me make sure I check my Guatemalan here on the show. Like, whoa, let's clear the deck. Let's clear the mechanism a little bit. Getting a little too aggressive there. Again, Garrett has a lot of potential, a lot of possibilities. But look at the Jets' history. They've had a very rich history with wide receivers. But back to your point on the Davante Adams Club Shay Shay thing and with Shannon Sharp. Yes, I heard that from Davante, and I don't know if he answered the final bell, but he said if I was basically, I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit, but this is basically what he said. And if I was going to reunite with anyone, from his past, because Josh Jacobs flirted with him a little bit this offseason coming back to Green Bay and things of that nature, he said it would be with Aaron Rodgers. And if I relocated, cough, was traded anywhere, it would be with Aaron Rodgers, cough, the New York Jets is what he's talking about. And again, I disagree vehemently with the Boomer Esiason thing. This trade, if it's going to happen, happens before the season. I couldn't disagree more because while that sounds great in a Madden video game, and the Madden video game comes out before the season, so feel free to do that of your own volition if you'd like to trade Davante Adams to the team. But it's not happened till the trade deadline. I don't think the Raiders will do it because they believe in themselves and they believe they can contend. I think that's foolhardy, but we'll see what happens. I do not believe they will be contending, but they do. They believe in that building. Everyone's 0-0 right now, so everyone has a hope. And the Jets believe in their guys. Mike Williams, Malachi Corley, Lazard, Gibson, Brownlee, all those guys. They believe in them for better or for worse, and we'll see what happens. So they want to ride out what they have. And if there's some epic disaster, that could change. There's some critical injury in camp. God bless, hopefully not. But if there's something like that, then all of a sudden, sure, all of a sudden the Jets are like, we're in an all-in season. We just lost a very important player. Okay, now we're going to go make a move to go get someone. That's different. But I think they want to test out the season, go through a couple weeks. Hopefully the Raiders suck and the Jets are good or average. And in either of those scenarios, Jets make an aggressive move to go get Davante. But we have to see how things play out. So I saw that. that just stoked the flames even more for me that Devontae Adams will eventually be a member of the New York Jets, but it's going to take time. The season is 50 plus days away. I just saw on
Yeah.
the tweet earlier today. And then the trade deadline is 2 months away. So I mean, we or 4 months away, excuse me. So like there was a significant gap of time. The trade deadline got pushed a little bit further than normal, but still, it's a long time before we get to the trade deadline in November. So let's see what happens. But yes, I think Devontae will eventually be a member of the Jets.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of waiting out to the deadline. I think if it was to happen, it would happen at that point. But you look at the Raiders quarterback situation right now. You have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell basically in a dogfight for quarterback one, compared to the Jets, who have future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers signal calling, and then you have Tyrod Taylor as a backup. And my thing about Taylor is I feel comfortable if let's say Rodgers has to miss 4 games because of a minor injury, or even
Mm-hmm.
2, Taylor could go 500 in those games. That's what I like a lot about Taylor. Like, he's not gonna dig us into such a deep hole if Rodgers has to miss a short amount of time. So that's what I like about the Jets quarterback room right now. But again, the other name who's been flying around, Brandon Ayuk, according to Mike Garafolo of NFL Network, Ayuk has officially requested out of the 49ers organization after an offseason long of contract talks and extension. He only has 1 year left on his rookie deal. And Dan Graziano, a senior NFL insider for ESPN, actually, I don't know if you saw this, but
I did not.
released the top landing spots for Ayuk, and he listed the Jets as one of them. So I put out
Ooh.
a news story on it for JetX. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on Ayuk. Do you think there's a chance that the Jets grab him? He was listed the 10th best wide receiver in the league on Jeremy Fowler's rankings. Personally, I think it's unrealistic because of the cap and stuff. But if you bring Ayuk to the Jets, that's a Super Bowl roster. Future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Mike. When Mike Williams is your wide receiver 3, you know you're doing something right.
Yeah, that's for sure. And hell, I mean, Brandon Ayuk is making less money this year on his 5th year option than Devontae Adams is making this year. So cap wise, technically could fit. But I know your point because if you're making this trade, you have to give him a long term extension, or you'd be crazy. You'd be doing the Jamal Adams thing where Seattle did not give him an extension immediately. They gave up a bunch of picks, and then all the leverage was with Jamal, and they had to pay him whatever he said, which ultimately made him the highest paid safety in football. So if the Jets did trade for Ayuk, it would be crazy not to pay him immediately because you would set a very bad precedent and put
Yes.
yourself in a tough spot. I think it's possible from NFC to AFC. So the 49ers will get to keep him out of the conference. There's been a lot of Commanders rumors. I don't know if they'd want to keep him inside the
Okay.
conference.
Yep.
So that part's possible. The Jets, in theory, have a need, again, depending on how you view the receiver room. Some people view it differently. We had a caller that it was either on my show today on the morning show or yesterday that said the Jets wide receiver room is deep and they love what the room is and they don't think we need Devontae Adams. And there's others say, like, oh boy, we could really use a Devontae. So there's differing opinions. Brandon Ayuk is younger, but he's going to cost a heck of a lot more. Devontae, I imagine, is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of like a 2 and a 3, maybe a 2 and a 4, maybe like a Braylon Edwards. And I know I'm going back on you there, Connor, with age wise, but
Hey,
he,
Michigan guy.
yeah, that's right. There you go. And he like saved a guy in a Planet
Yep.
Fitness or something. So like he's a hero. The Jets traded a 3rd and a 5th for him back in the day from Cleveland. For Santonio, they traded a 5th. For Marshall, they traded a 5th. So they have a history of trading mid-round draft choices for really excellent receivers. So I don't think Devontae is going to cost a 1st. But Brandon Ayuk might. He might cost a 1st or a
Yeah.
combination of picks. Plus, you got to pay him the bag. So it would be a lot more expensive, but you'd be getting a younger player. Not as good of a player in my mind as Devontae. And Devontae, I believe, was 5th on that Jeremy Fowler wide receiver
Mm-hmm.
list. And Ayuk made the top 10. That's cool to hear. So Ayuk's really good. He's really talented. And out of all the 49ers receivers, I prefer him over Debo. He's a pure receiver. And you're
Yeah.
hoping Malachi Corley can eventually be a Debo Samuel type, even if he never reaches that level necessarily, because obviously Debo's really good. I'd prefer a pure wide receiver that could do wide receiver things, like the gizmo gadget of what Malachi Corley is and the ceiling that the Jets believe that there's more untapped potential there beneath the surface. Ayuk would be intriguing. I think it's possible, but also the other complicating factors is the Jets have to pay a bunch of guys next offseason. So if you pay a
Yes.
guy and he cuts the line, that could disrupt the locker room. Some random person comes in here and gets a market resetting deal, which would probably be in the 30 million per year range. Garrett's looking at that like the hell, sauce, the
Yeah.
heck. And if you don't pay them accordingly, that could create tension in the locker room. So it's dangerous, but Ayuk obviously is really talented.
I mean, Boy Green. Week 1, prime time, Monday Night Football. And you're
Mm-hmm.
saying Brandon Ayuk is lining up on the Jets side? I mean, you're talking Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, or
Yeah.
trying to take his head off every time the football comes his way. But if the Jets
Either way, it's
prevent
good
I
news, though. That's what I will
yeah,
say. That this
yeah,
outside of him, I guess, getting traded to the Buffalo Bills, which several people reminded me of that possibility on social media. Okay, outside of that, where you'd be playing him twice, like
yeah.
if he holds out because he's frustrated, he ain't playing week 1. That's good news for the Jets. If the holdout potential went that far, if they trade him, great. The 49ers are going to be weaker. It's very rare. The Jets have pulled it off a couple of times in history. Calvin Pryor for Demario Davis. That was a 1-for-1 swap. Very rarely happens where you get a player for player deal. More likely to be a combination of future picks if the 49ers move on from him, which means their team would be weaker. I bring up the Jamal Adams example again. Heading into, I believe that was the 2020 season, the Jets traded Jamal Adams right before training camp, and they had a 2-14 year. Yeah, they traded away one of their best players. I'm not surprised. All of a sudden, they sucked even worse than they were probably going to suck anyway. So that could hurt the 49ers. So again, if you're a Jet fan, grab your popcorn, root for chaos. That's spectacular. For the drama in San Francisco, let's get more of that, please, ahead of week 1. Yes.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, either way, it is great news for the New York Jets. He's either on their sideline on another team, but hopefully not with the 49ers in lining up week 1, whatever happens. But let's get into some questions in the chat going all the way back. Terrence Hill saying Garrett Wilson can easily average 10 catches a game. I told you first, BG. Wilson gets 109 catches by week 10.
By the way, that number he's indicating is the single season record for the Jets, which is Brandon Marshall's
Whew,
109
yeah.
catches in a full season, let alone through the first 10 games. I will say this, Terrence. If he gets to that, I will just bow down to the statue that the Jets will build for you at MetLife Stadium because that would be the greatest take of all time. I would also say this: he is going to get fed, and he being Garrett Wilson, he is going to get targeted. If you have a fantasy football draft, I will advocate for you this time and maybe multiple times. In my big fantasy football league through my radio station, I have the 8th overall pick.
Ooh,
Garrett
that's
Wilson's
tough.
at Garrett Wilson's at the top of my board. If he's on the board, I'm running that pick up. If Brees Hall's out there, I'm running that up. So those are my two targets. I'll just be honest here. And if anyone from my league is listening, then I just got screwed. But either way, I'm just going to be straight up that's who I'm looking at. Garrett Wilson's going to get the ball, and he's going to get the ball a lot. He is the clear number 1 option on this team. And a compromised Mike Williams early in the season, which could happen with the torn ACL. We don't know what he's going to be. That means more rock for Garrett Wilson. So he very well could, Terrence. We'll see what happens. I think Garrett Wilson is in for one of the biggest seasons we've ever seen from a Jets receiver.
Yeah, before we get into the comments, talk about fantasy football. I'm personally one. I've been playing fantasy since 2nd grade, so I'm about to enter my 5th. I'm doing the math. I'm on summer vacation right now, either 5th or 6th year, whatever it is.
Sure.
Probably 5th year playing fantasy, and I've always had a pet peeve of drafting someone on the Jets just because it's like I want the Jets to win as a whole. I don't want to have to root for individual production. But if I have an opportunity to snag a player like Wilson or Hall, if it's at the right time, the right price, if I'm in the right situation, love to bring them on my team. But 10 catches a game, see, I could see that happening. The thing is, I'm concerned. I think Rodgers is just gonna spread the ball out a lot. That's the only way I don't see it happening. I think it's gonna get spread out a lot among the receivers. So that's where I see Wilson not being able to break that record. But going back to the you mentioned Marshall had that record.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that 2015 season. I put him as an honorable mention, not in the top 5, because he didn't spend enough time with the team to earn the top 5, and the
Fair.
2016 season wasn't great. It's like, okay, he had this iconic 2015 campaign, struggled to keep that up, and then he's no longer a Jet, so he had an honorable mention. But yeah, if he looks to Garrett Wilson, 100%. I think he can get 10 catches a game. But thing is, like I said, I don't think he's gonna spread the ball around too much for Wilson to consume that many balls. But another comment from Terrence. I was thinking Corley was going to be involved in an Adams trade. Thought that was why he hadn't signed, but now that's over.
Wow, that would have been creative to do it in that way of trading draft rights, which is normally an NBA style thing. But every once in a while, you see it where a rookie is traded, and it's normally a bizarre circumstance. I can't remember the player at all, but something happened semi recently with the Raiders Dolphins. A rookie was just traded, and yes, 100% hit the like button and subscribe on both streams. We're both on
100%.
my channel, Boy Green 25, and of course here on Connor's channel as well. So, guys, make sure you show your love no matter where. And we'll be doing this through right before the season, I think, or whenever
Yep,
that
that's
is.
yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we'll be doing it. So I really love doing these. But yeah, Terrence, that would have been wild. Like I said, we just saw something semi recently. It was people could probably look this up and find out what the answer is, but it was like a Raiders Dolphins like gizmo gadget guy that could play running back and wide receiver. It just happened within the last 5 years, and they moved him in his rookie year, and there was some sort of a coaching change or something happened where he got moved and they lost value on whatever that move was. So it sometimes happens, but that's very rare. No, that not the reason, obviously, why Corley was moved. But yes, that's over. Corley is here. It would take a very unique scenario for the Raiders to also be interested in Corley to make him
Yeah.
part of that deal, and thus. But the Jets were so in on Corley, like they were trying to trade up for him since pick 45 in the second round, and they were unable to,
Yes.
so they had to wait for the first pick of the third round, which I believe was 65. So that would be the
67.
greatest. Yeah, the 67. That would have been the greatest bluff in history that they fake showed all that passion to then use that piece to get Devontae. We're getting conspiracy theory aluminum foil on the head here to try to get to that. But no, that will not be it. We will see though. Sometimes you can get creative with the trade. When the Jets traded up from 17 to 5. Wait, when were you born again, Connor?
2011, July
Okay,
2011.
so this predates you. The Mark Sanchez trade in 2009, the Jets had the 17th overall pick and they moved up to the 5th overall pick. And they didn't have to give up the normal value you would, making that sizable jump because the Jets included a lot of veteran players. Abram, Coleman, Brett Ratliff, the former quarterback I thought was the savior of the Jets. That a whole list of guys to get to 5 to pick Sanchez instead of the Josh Freeman who they would have taken with the 17th overall pick. Maybe some players can help, smooth that trade and make it a little easier.
100%. Dano, question. Thoughts about our wide receiver room? Should we go the free agent route and bring in Michael Thomas to add to this room? Question mark. Seems like he's finally getting healthy again and might be more realistic before the Raiders lose 5 games.
I like MT, the Ohio State product, but from the outside looking in, I don't know him personally. Can't guard Mike, I believe, is still his social media handle. He's a diva, and there's a lot of hoopla that
Yeah.
gets involved with him. He's had a lot of injuries, a bit of a drama queen, and he's had when you're a drama queen and you have production, I'm like, I don't care. But if
Yeah.
you don't have the production and you're injured all the time and you have the drama, I'm like, eh. And here's another thing that people struggle with. I bring up Joe Flacco as a common example. When he was replaced by Lamar Jackson, he took that very hard because Joe Flacco in his brain was saying, hey, I'm Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco. Who the hell is this? I got plenty of game left.
Yes.
And he didn't adjust his mentality to say, okay, I'm no longer a starter. I'm a backup. So it's a tough transition. For some players, it's not. For some players, it is. Michael Thomas is not the Pro Bowl All-Star he used to be. So to come into a situation like the Jets or anywhere else, because again, he had been with the Saints his entire career, that's going to be an adjustment. Some players can make it, some players can't. He may never play another down. I don't know what's going to happen to Michael Thomas, but that's a big thing for players is going from superstar starter to where they were to being backup and fighting for their roster spot, which would be what Michael Thomas would be doing with the Jets. I think there's too much hoopla there. I love the talent. I would do it in Madden. I'd give him a try in a couple of preseason games, but in reality, actual real life, I don't anticipate that happening. No.
Yeah, when all's said and done, we're gonna wrap up here. When all's said and done, I think the Jets stay with their group right now. I think mostly on their roster, especially with the receiver room. It looks like they seem to feel comfortable, and I don't think they add another receiver. Personally, I think they should with the question marks behind Garrett Wilson. But again, I do not. I think the Jets will stick to this roster going into 2024. But you are watching episode 3 of In the Huddle with Boy Green and Connor. Boy Green, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say, guys, thanks for supporting the show. Again, we're streaming on both of our platforms, so make sure you guys check it out. So hopefully any of my Boy Green people that I see are commenting all over my YouTube channel right now, you hop on over and show your support, for Connor Long of JetsXFactor.com, columnist extraordinaire and new teenager. So he's going to have a rebellion phase at some point during this podcast. Hopefully I'm ready and prepared for that. Hopefully I could get some tips from his dad, whatever that phase hits. But either way, it's awesome. And guys, if you enjoy my program, again, Boy Green Daily comes out tomorrow morning, and Connor Rogers of NBC Sports and PFF and SNY and all that jazz, he'll be joining me tomorrow morning at 7:30 live in the morning. That's going to be fun. So yeah.
Can't wait. Everyone, make sure you're subscribed to Boy Green's channel, at BoyGreen25 on YouTube. And make sure to subscribe to my channel. We are so close to monetization at NY Flight Jets Talk on YouTube. Please, everyone, go over there. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. It really means a lot. But everyone, thank you guys for this. JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.